For 6 long hours, the conference room had been filled with nothing but frustration. Papers covered the table like fallen leaves, diagrams overlapped each other, and 10 engineers paced back and forth, arguing, recalculating, and shaking their heads in defeat. A massive machine stood silent in the center of the lab, a prototype worth millions, and no one could figure out why it refused to start. "It doesn't make sense," one engineer muttered. "Every diagnostic says it should work." Another slammed his notebook shut. "We've rebuilt the circuit twice. We've checked every line of code. This thing is dead." The supervisor rubbed his temples, exhausted. Investors were flying in the next day. Failure wasn't an option, yet that's exactly what the brightest minds in the room were staring at. That was when the door slowly opened. A woman stepped inside. Plain clothes, hair pulled back, quiet footsteps. She wasn't an engineer, not a technician, not even part of the project. She was the building's janitor, finishing her shift early because she'd heard the commotion. Everything okay?" she asked softly. The engineers barely looked at her. "We got it handled." One snapped. She nodded and stepped aside. "All right, just sounded stressful." Another engineer groaned. "Stressful doesn't even begin to cover it." She glanced at the machine, eyes narrowing with gentle curiosity. "Mind if I take a look?" That made them laugh. Actually laugh. "You? Look at this," one said. "It's a complex electromechanical prototype," another added, almost proudly. But she didn't blush. She didn't back away. She simply shrugged. Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes helps. The supervisor sighed. "Let her. We have nothing to lose." The room fell silent as she approached the machine. She didn't touch anything, just leaned close, listening, observing. She crouched near the base, studied the wiring, then slowly walked around it. "Did you hear that?" she asked suddenly. The engineers exchanged confused looks. "Hear what?" She placed her ear against the side of the machine. There's a faint clicking, like something's trying to move but can't. One engineer stepped forward, alarmed. "That shouldn't be possible. The system isn't powered." "It's not electrical," she said simply. "It's mechanical." Her words struck the room like a spark. She pointed to a small panel near the bottom. "May I?" The supervisor nodded. She unscrewed the panel with a multi-tool she carried. A tiny, worn thing that looked like it fixed 1,000 broken objects. Inside, everyone leaned closer. A single metal gear, smaller than a coin, sat wedged at an awkward angle. "It's jammed," she said. "Whoever installed it didn't set the alignment pin correctly. It's trying to move, but the pressure is locking it in place." The lead engineer stood frozen. "But the system diagnostics don't check mechanical misalignment," she finished calmly. Before anyone could react, she gently adjusted the gear, nudged the alignment pin into place, and rotated it with careful precision. The moment she stepped back, the machine hummed. Softly at first, then louder, warming to life like a waking giant. Lights blinked, panels shifted. A deep mechanical thrum filled the room. The engineers stared, stunned into absolute silence. The supervisor's jaw dropped. "You fixed it." She smiled shyly. It wasn't broken, just stuck. The room erupted. Engineers scrambled to their stations, running tests, shouting in disbelief. "It's fully operational. All readings are perfect. How did we miss that?" But she only wiped a smudge of grease from her fingers, ready to leave. Before she reached the door, the supervisor rushed after her. "Wait, how did you know what to look for?" She hesitated, eyes drifting somewhere far away. "My father used to fix old clocks. I helped since I was little. When something doesn't move the way it should, you can feel it." The engineers listened, humbled, amazed. The woman who was invisible a moment ago now stood at the center of the room, like a quiet storm that had swept away their doubts. But just as she turned to leave, something happened, something none of them expected. The machine suddenly emitted a sharp, unusual sound. The entire team whipped around, panic rising again, and the woman stopped mid-step. Her expression changed. She knew that sound, and she knew what it meant. The strange metallic chirp echoed through the room, sharp enough to slice through the engineer's celebration. Everyone froze. The machine's lights flickered once, then steadied, then flickered again, this time harder. One of the engineers panicked. That wasn't supposed to happen. Another frantically checked the monitor. Diagnostics aren't showing anything. It's like... The woman raised her hand gently, stopping them all. She turned back toward the machine, her eyes narrowing with a focused calm that none of them had. "That sound," she murmured, stepping closer. "It's not coming from the gear I fixed. It's deeper." She crouched again, this time pressing her palm lightly against the machine side. The room went completely silent as she closed her eyes, sensing subtle vibrations no one else could detect. After several seconds, she whispered, "It's overheating." The lead engineer shook his head. "Impossible. The cooling system is active." She didn't argue. She simply opened her eyes and said, "Not all of it is." The engineers exchanged confused glances as she walked around the back of the machine, where a cluster of cables fed into a secondary cooling unit. One cable hung slightly loose, so small, so insignificant looking that the engineers had never noticed. She gently tugged it, and it came free in her hand. The entire room erupted in alarm. "Wait, what are you doing? That cable is critical." But she didn't flinch. She held up the loose connector, showing them the tiny scorch marks near the tip. "This wasn't plugged in properly," she said. "It's been arcing, slowly burning itself out from the inside." The supervisor stepped closer, eyes widening. "If that cable failed completely..." The lead engineer finished the sentence in a whisper. The whole system could have overheated and exploded. A tremor ran through the room. The woman calmly reconnected the cable, this time securing it with a precise twist, and tightened it with her multi-tool. She held the connection in place for a moment, feeling the vibrations shift. When she stepped back, the machine's hum deepened, smoothing into a perfect, steady rhythm. The flickering stopped. The lights settled into a clean, even glow. The machine was stable. Again, the engineers stared at her like she had stepped out of a myth. She slowly stood up, brushing dust from her knees. "You saved the entire prototype," one of them whispered in disbelief. "You just prevented a catastrophe," another added. The supervisor exhaled shakily. "You may have just saved the entire company." But she only gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. Anyone would have done the same. "No!" Victor, the lead engineer, said firmly. "Not anyone." Before she could respond, the lab door burst open. A tall man in a dark suit stormed in, followed by two assistants. He looked furious, scanning the room. "What is going on here?" "Investors are arriving in 6 hours, and I..." His words stopped dead when he saw the active machine, lit and running flawlessly. His assistants gasped. His eyes widened. "How? How is operational? You told me it was dead." Victor swallowed hard, glancing at the woman. "Sir, she fixed it." The room held its breath. The man turned slowly toward her, disbelief mixing with something sharper, something curious and calculating. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Who are you?" The woman hesitated, overwhelmed by the attention. But before she could answer, one of the assistants spoke up, eyes widening as she recognized her. "Sir, I think that's..." She stopped herself, eyes flicking to the woman's face. Something unspoken passed between them, and suddenly the room felt different, warmer, colder, heavier, like a secret was about to surface, one the woman had tried very hard to keep hidden. Victor stepped forward, confused. "What is it? Do you know her?" The supervisor looked between them rapidly. "Is there something we should know?" The woman's eyes dropped to the floor. Her hands tightened around her multi-tool. The man in the suit straightened, staring at her with a strange mixture of recognition and shock. Finally, in a quiet but trembling voice, he said the words that made every engineer in the room take a step back. "I know exactly who she is." The room fell silent, waiting for the next revelation. The man in the suit took a slow step closer, his expression tightening, as if he were looking at a ghost instead of the woman standing quietly in front of him. "I know exactly who she is," he repeated, voice low. Every engineer stiffened. Victor swallowed hard. "Sir, who is she?" The woman's shoulders tensed, her eyes fixed on the floor. She didn't speak, didn't move. It was as if she already knew what was coming. The executive exhaled shakily. "She's the one who built the original design for this machine." The room erupted in stunned whispers. "What? That can't be. But she's not even on the employee list." The woman closed her eyes, almost pained, as the executive continued. "She was part of the development phase years ago. The youngest member on the team. She saw the crucial structural flaw that none of us could crack. Her calculations were beyond anything we'd seen." Victor stared at her, speechless. "You worked on this?" She finally looked up, guilt swimming behind her eyes. "I left before the project was finished." "Why?" the supervisor asked, confused. She hesitated. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because people kept taking credit for my work. Because I was too young to be taken seriously. Because they said a girl from a small town couldn't possibly understand technology like this." The engineers looked at her differently now, softened, humbled, ashamed for ever doubting her. The executive stepped forward, his tone shifting. "You disappeared without warning. We tried to track you down. We thought something happened to you." "Nothing happened," she said softly. "I just got tired of being invisible. So I took a job where nobody expected anything from me, and it was easier." The room went still. Victor spoke quietly. "But you still cared. You stepped in today. You saved this project." She shrugged gently. "Old habits." But before anyone could say more, the machine behind them emitted another soft shift in tone. A different sound this time, not alarming, but unusual, almost like it was adjusting itself. The engineers turned confused. "That's new. I've never heard that before." The woman's eyes widened. She stepped closer to the machine, laying her palm against its side again. "This isn't a malfunction," she whispered. "It's trying to activate the secondary sequence." Victor frowned. "We haven't coded a secondary sequence yet." She turned toward him slowly, a strange, knowing look in her eyes. "You haven't?" The entire room froze. The executive stepped forward, urgency in his voice. "What are you saying?" She took a quiet breath. "I built something into the early framework. Something nobody else knew about." The lights on the machine flickered, not in danger this time, but in pattern. A deliberate, rhythmic sequence. One engineer whispered, "It's responding to her." The woman nodded once, as if confirming something only she understood. Then she said 4 words that sent a chill through every person in the room. "It's waking itself up." Before anyone could react, the machine made a sound they had never heard before, deeper, louder, like a core unlocking from the inside. The engineers stumbled back. Victor stared in disbelief. The executive's eyes widened. "What did you build into this thing?" The woman didn't answer right away. She stepped closer to the humming machine, eyes reflecting the shifting lights, and whispered, "Something none of you were ready for." And at that very moment, a panel on the machine slowly began to open on its own, revealing something inside that made the entire team cry out in shock. Alex turned back toward the whiteboard, trying to regain control of the situation. "Okay, so you balance the core equations. But that still leaves the synchronization offset. That's what's actually stopping the machine." Before anyone could comment, Marie walked past him, lifted the protective cover on the panel, and began inspecting the wiring, carefully, methodically, almost like she'd done this 100 times. One of the younger engineers whispered, "She's guessing. She has to be guessing." But she wasn't. Marie traced one cable with her fingers and murmured, "This is where your timing error is coming from." Alex blinked. "That cable has nothing to do with the timing module." "Yes," she replied softly, "if the machine worked exactly the way it was designed on paper. But in real conditions, this cable bleeds just enough interference to throw your readings off. That's why your software patch kept failing." The room froze. She gently unplugged the cable, twisted the connector slightly, and reattached it. Then she stepped back and nodded toward the control panel. "Try it now." Alex swallowed, suddenly nervous as he pressed the power button. The machine hummed again, steady this time. No grinding, no smoke, No alarms. The lights glowed in a smooth, even pattern none of them had ever seen before. "It's stabilizing," murmured one engineer. "It's actually working," said another, eyes wide. But Marie didn't look surprised. She watched the machine calmly, as though she'd expected this outcome from the beginning. Alex stared at her. "How did you even know that? We've had specialists from 3 companies trying to diagnose that issue. No one even suspected that cable." Marie glanced around at all the stunned faces. "Because I used to repair old farm equipment with my father. Sometimes the problem isn't the complicated part. Sometimes it's something small everybody overlooks." Before anyone could respond, the machine emitted a sharp beep. Indicators flashed green. All diagnostics passed. The engineers erupted into cheers, shouting, laughing, clapping. But Marie simply stepped back, almost shyly, as though she didn't want the attention now pouring toward her from every direction. Alex walked over slowly, still speechless. "You didn't just help," he said. "You solved something our entire team couldn't crack for weeks." Marie opened her mouth to answer, but she never got the chance, because in that moment, the overhead radio suddenly crackled to life, and a panicked voice shouted, "Everyone to the main hall, now!" Something unexpected just happened. Marie's head snapped toward the sound, and without hesitation, she walked toward the door as the engineers trailed behind her, wondering what crisis could be unfolding now, and why. For some reason, they all silently hoped she would be the one to face it. Marie hurried toward the main hall, with the engineers close behind her. The tension grew with every step, their footsteps echoing through the metallic corridor. When they reached the hall, they found a crowd gathered around a giant display screen that showed a live feed from the facility's external monitoring cameras. Alex pushed forward. "What's going on?" A technician pointed at the screen, his voice trembling. The machine, the moment it stabilized, it triggered a chain reaction in the network. "Something is forming outside." On the display, swirling beams of energy converged at a single point behind the facility. The air shimmered like heat rising from the desert floor. The phenomenon pulsed brighter and brighter, illuminating the entire compound. "It's a resonance field," Alex whispered, "but we've never seen anything like it." Marie stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. She leaned toward the console and studied the readings. To everyone else, the data looked like chaotic spikes. To her, it looked like a pattern. "This isn't random," she said quietly. "It's responding to the machine, to the alignment we just corrected." A loud crackling sound boomed across the speakers. The light tore open like fabric being ripped apart, revealing a glowing vortex, beautiful and terrifying all at once. Panic spread through the room. "Shut down the machine!" someone shouted. "Evacuate!" another cried. But Marie shook her head. "If we turn it off now, the field will collapse violently. The whole facility could be destroyed." Alex stared at her. "Then what do we do?" Marie took a slow breath. "Let me try something." Before anyone could protest, she ran to the machine chamber. The others raced after her, shouting warnings, but she wasn't listening. She placed her hands on the control interface, reading every pulse, every vibration of the machinery as though it were speaking to her. "It's like a tuning fork," she murmured. "We just need to match its frequency gently." She made a single adjustment, tiny, almost insignificant, and the machine responded with a long, steady hum. Outside, the vortex wavered, then softened, then slowly folded on itself like a closing flower. The hall fell silent. The bright light faded, leaving only the quiet night sky. The monitors returned to normal. The danger was gone. Everyone stared at Marie, stunned into silence. Finally, Alex spoke, barely above a whisper. "You didn't just save the machine. You saved all of us." Marie stepped back, her breathing steady. "I just did what made sense." The lead director of the facility approached her, his expression a mix of awe and gratitude. "Marie," he said, "we want to offer you a permanent position here. Leadership level. Full authority to oversee the project." Marie blinked. "Me? But I'm not." "Yes," he said firmly. "You are." The team applauded, some cheering, some still wiping sweat from their brows. For the first time, Marie allowed herself a small smile, not of pride, but of quiet relief, because she had proved something to herself that she had always suspected but never said aloud. Sometimes the world's biggest problems don't need the smartest mind in the room. They need the one who sees what others overlook. And as the sun began to rise outside the facility, painting the sky in soft gold, Marie walked forward into a future she never imagined, one she had earned with nothing more than calm judgment, steady hands, and a brilliance no one had ever bothered to notice. The room emptied slowly, leaving behind only the faint hum of a machine that now worked perfectly.